senkos, stickworms, the ones with the bright chartreuse tails, like this one, like these guys right here, are very popular among bass anglers. But for some reason, I just can't bring myself to throw these colors. They definitely catch a lot of bass, but I think there is a better way than buying these worms with the pre-molded chartreuse tails. Let me break down why I don't personally buy these worms myself. Are you like me that these sharp colors on these worms kind of throw you off? The high contrast, the brightness, and some of the clear water is just like too much for you mentally to wrap your head around that like this looks natural in the water? Because that's kind of what it is for me. I much prefer to dye my worms myself versus buy them like this. And for two reasons. There are times I think these baits are just too bright and unnatural. They stick out too much in the clear water for me. Maybe it's mentally to me. Maybe the bass don't care. I don't know. But in my head, and so much of fishing is mental. If you don't have confidence, it's hard to be confident in a bait or a worm or a technique. You don't get bit. So for that reason, I don't really like to buy these. And I guess one of the big reasons I don't like to do the chartreuse ones is because I just don't want to carry the extra inventory, right? I want to keep a few green pumpkins, a few pumpkin seeds, some bluegills, the colors I like, and then just add the chartreuse as needed. Stocking the non-chartreuse and the chartreuse ones just takes up way too much space in my tackle bag, way too much space in my boat. I hope you can understand. Just and then it's cheaper. Carrying inventory of two different colors all the time and all those different variations just adds up over time. I prefer to take a chartreuse pen, or back in the old days had chartreuse dip it to dye them and precisely dye how I wanted to do that. The pens are definitely cleaner, but they don't get quite as bright as dipping them. But they do allow more precision to get these pens. If you've never seen these pens, I'll put down a link down in the description. The liquid dyes are great, but I'm sure we've all had that issue where we've spilled the dye on ourselves or our clothes or our hands or worse, in our boat or a buddy's boat, and had to tell him like, "Hey, I spilled chartreuse dye on your carpet. I hope that's not a big deal." Yeah, it's not a good move, not a good look, not a great situation. But I think there's still something now better than these for certain applications for sure. The other drawback to these worms is that I feel like sometimes, right, because these bright colors are on the ends of these worms, is a lot of time we're wacky rigging these worms, right? We're wacky rigging them. And our hook is in the middle. And I think sometimes whether it's like a black dot on a crankbait or the chartreuse tip of a worm like this, I know for sure bait fish and small bass gravitate this, and I think sometimes larger bass also gravitate to the end of it. And so if you're getting a short strike and they're focused and this is what draws them in and they hit it there, a lot of times we could be missing fish or missing strikes because in a wacky rig we're in the middle. So I think that's a little bit of an issue. And then a lot of times little bait fish are pulling on this and they're pulling the tails off and they're prematurely wearing out your expensive Yamamoto senkos and other stick baits. There's definitely a little bit of a secret that a lot of anglers are not talking about, or at least a few. They're not just coloring the tips of their worms anymore. So let's listen to this little soundbite to give you a little tip.
I dye the middle of my senkos chartreuse. That's my tonka seed.
So there, like we heard it, like there's some anglers that are definitely coloring the middle sections of their worms instead of the ends to get that same thing. And why does chartreuse work? I think chartreuse works because a lot of bluegills have a chartreuse like gill plate or highlights, but a lot of times it's in the center of the bait, and I think that triggers something mentally for the bass to key in and say, yes, that is something that I should eat or I could eat or I know that's food, because that chartreuse I think tends to make them think it's a bluegill. Plus, it just gives them a little more visibility sometimes, or makes it stick out compared to other things and other forage, right? A lot of times, fish, bass, predator fish are going to single out something that's different in a school. So I think that's why chartreuse works, I think, so often. Because we talked about why I don't like these worms, but what is the solution if I'm saying not buy these? Arsenal fishing has had these clear bands for years, and these are a great little tool. They definitely like lock these onto a hook. They're a much superior rigging. I almost always use these clear bands when wacky rigging or neko rigging. They make my baits last so much longer. It's just a great accessory to wacky rigging. But the exciting thing for me in the last few months, Arsenal Fishing has come out with these chartreuse bands. So these little guys right here, chartreuse bands, the perfect little like amount of chartreuse translucent, and I'm pretty excited about these. I got to dabble with them a little bit at the end of the year. They can be added to any worm color, so it's a great way to use your imagination. Add these bands to your normal greens and browns, right? Let me rig one up here quick. So you can take the Arsenal tool, you slip one of these bands on here, grab your favorite colored stickworm, right? So here's like a bluegill colored Senko, and you can just pull that right to that center up by the egg sac where you would normally wacky rig it. You pull it off, and now you have chartreuse right in the center of your worm. And I know it doesn't look super bright here, but when you drop it in the water, like I'm showing here, it illuminates and it brightens, and it's like it goes to like the to me, like the ideal. It's not super like neon like this, but just enough where it pops in the water to get that fish's attention. Maybe show it on like, and so it doesn't matter like if you like generals or senkos or whatever it is. Like I've got like I'm a stickworm guy. I got piles of stickworms. It works on all of them. Maybe this will show up a little better. We'll put one on one of these like baby bass colored ones just to give you a different look here. Just pull that right on there. Went a little too far. Get it in the middle. We'll slip it off. There you go. You can see that chartreuse brand right in the middle of that worm. Pretty cool. Like, and now your hook, right? We can wacky rig that right through that band, which is going to make it last longer. And now the target of that is right where you want the fish to hit. Love it on green pumpkin, pumpkin seed. But what about other colors? Like, what about like on a red bug or a June bug? Like, use your imagination on how like the chartreuse could be a way to accent some worms. Like, leave me a comment below if you've got like a combo of like that you like to add some chartreuse to that maybe they don't even make. So like that's the other thing is like they make this in like black and June bug and pumpkin seed and green pumpkin, but like now the world is your oyster as far as like if you want to add that chartreuse to about any worm you want. The precision of the dye getting everywhere, or these things drying out when you need them. Like you go to use it in the boat and it's like it's out. So no more worrying about that. And when I don't want to use chartreuse, I can use the clear bands, right? If I want something natural. And now I don't need to stock double the amount of worms in all these colors. The new style Arsenal pliers actually has a little groove to put O-rings on there. So you can use this for the clear bands, the colored bands, or the O-rings that you may have laying around. And to me, the best part is the chartreuse is now in the middle, right where the hook is. This should eliminate a lot of the short strikes and missed fish. Plus, no more panfish nipping at the tails, wearing out your expensive senkos and stick baits prematurely. Hope these tips help you spend less on plastic worms, free up space in your tackle bag, and land more bass. I have dropped a few links down in the video description below where you can get these new chartreuse bands if you want them. If you haven't seen this wacky tool before and you want to learn more, check out this video on the screen right here.